Okay, so I would like to introduce the first speaker, that is Zoraida Callejas Carrion. She's a professor in computer science at Universidad de Granada. She's a researcher of affective dialogue system, and she coordinated a many initiative mental health monitoring through interactive conversation. She also led an activity in this cluster of project, and she worked on the creation of a white paper with all the lessons learned of all these 11 projects. So now I will give the floor to Zoraida. So Zoraida, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manuel. So I'm going to share my slides. I hope you can see them correctly. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to tell you very briefly about the lessons we've learned about patient engagement and experience, and also the technical barriers that had to be overcome in order to develop the ICT technologies within the cluster. So, as Manuel was describing, I'm the coordinator of the many project in which we are interested in mental health and well-being. But the results that I'm going to tell you about are the shared conclusions of all the 11 projects that are part of the CSAIW cluster. So within the cluster, we came together in order to foster the interdisciplinarity, in order to be able to address more user groups and increase their user engagement, and also to develop best practices that could be shared with other projects and also within the consortium. So these are the results of the discussion within the cluster about what we found were the key aspects, in this case, of user acceptance and compliance, and also on technical barriers. So in the first block, I will tell you about what were the main lessons that we've learned about how to engage users and foster usability and adoption of the technologies. So firstly, with respect to engagement, it identified different challenges. Ones are related to patients and how it is hard sometimes to recruit patients for projects which are more observational rather than producing a product, and this may hinder the initiative of the users to be part of the project, and also of the clinicians about the workload that it produces for them, and also the data that is generated by the project and could be useful for them. So within the cluster, we've come with different ways of addressing these challenges, including placing a lot of importance on explaining the patients or the users carefully why they should take part of the study, why it is important for them, but also why it could be important for other people who are facing the same difficulties that they have, and how their experience could be also useful for others. For clinicians, it's very important to provide ways of visualizing and accessing the data and the results in a way that it's usable and it's intuitive for them. And within the cluster, we have had a strong focus on participatory research. So in many or in all of the projects involved in the cluster, we have had co-creation panels and different ways of participatory research in which the solutions are not designed for the users, but with the users involved in the design process. And we are all, it is a shared conclusion for all projects that this was very useful and beneficial for the projects and for user engagement. With respect to usability, there are different ways, there are different things that we found it are crucial to be considered. One is that the different skills that the patients may have, and this must be foreseen. in advance, and there may be different ways, alternatives put in place in order to make the technology accessible to users with different digital literacy. These include training activities that show how to interact with the system, but also accompanying the users along the way. And for clinicians, it is important that the information that they obtain, it is actionable, that they receive the responses in time, and it provides additional insight to what they are already using without the technology developed within the projects. So for the technology readiness of the users, it is also important to be able to manage expectations. This is also another issue that I'm going to tell you about a bit later. With respect to adherence and the use of the technologies finally created within the projects, we found that there were different degrees of adherence. So many times the users use the technology just to the amount that is required within the different experiments. And also we found it is a challenge that users adopt the technology after the project is concluded. So, in order to do this, there must be really activities that are specifically designed to cover what happens after the project. Also to be able to contact the users in different ways, and how to establish workflows that deal with the scenario in which the technology does not work as expected. So the management of the possible errors during the use of the technology, and how to be near the users when they face difficulty using the technology, either because there is a bug or because the user is not able to operate it correctly. This has been key to many of the projects in the cluster. So as I was telling, beyond the end of the project, some of the projects involved in the cluster have found it was very important for them to put in place these long-term education programs in which they explain how to empower the users to be actors in their own care by the use of the technology developed within the project or as a result of the project. Also, it was very important to validate thoroughly the technology before delivering it. And this validation, it's also supported by the idea of co-creation, as I was saying before. So the technology is designed with the users, and then it's validated with the users. And then it's very checked in a pre-production scenario before it is delivered, and also before it is linked to, for example, hospital systems, etc. As I will tell you with more detail later. So there is also another aspect that we found, which is that the discontinued use of technology is not always negative. For example, when the focus is on mental health, there may be the objective that the user does not need the help of the system after a certain period of time. So in this case, the fact that the user does not need the support of the app, it could be an objective and not a sign that the app is not being well accepted. So different aims of the technology demand different ways of checking and of validating the adoption. With respect to technological barriers, we found different dimensions. First is related to the hardware and the devices. Many of us within the cluster have been working with smartphone apps or developing smartphone apps in this case. The main problem is that either we adapt to the user device, which we found it's key for users to adopt the technology and also to be able to use it. in this case, then the problem is that there are many different smartphone brands and different types of devices with different operating systems and different capabilities. So this requires a considerable amount of time and effort to develop these features, to develop the technologies and adapt to all these variables. And this requires specialized skills. So this has been addressed in different ways in the different consortia, either having a specific task within the work plan in order to work with these different brands or operating systems. Also, some projects found it very useful to include the manufacturers of the devices into the consortia. It must be planned with well ahead in time how the solution developed is going to be used with different versions of technologies. Also, there are ways of implementing applications that work on different operating systems, but this comes also with its own challenges. So all these different aspects are described in more detail in the white paper that we've put together within the cluster. Also, the same happens with the smartwatches. Here, the problem is that commercial devices are many times not validated, so the data produced is not always clinically validated. But in contrast, the validated systems sometimes are bulky or uncomfortable, or users are not used to wear this kind of device. So there is here a compromise between the validation of the data and the comfort in using the device. There is also the issue of the battery life. So tasks that demand a lot of battery should also be considered. And the same here, there is the need to consider all these different aspects well ahead and have tasks defined in the work plans to deal with these challenges. There are other issues that come with the interaction modalities. So to synchronize different modalities like video and audio, this is also very effort consuming and time consuming. There should be the relevant experience to deal with each interaction modality included within the consortia when we want to tackle with multimodal interaction. There is also the problematic of the heterogeneity of large volumes of data that could be collected through these devices. So there may be some semantic conflicts which require the agreement of some data harmonization, pre-processing, semantic description, knowledge extraction procedures, and all these have had to be addressed within the different consortia. And some found it very useful to have some natural language processing techniques, for example, to define dictionaries of synonyms or to discover relations between different entities, etc. Also, privacy and secure data transfer protocols must be put into place, and there must be the different persons in charge of different aspects of them. For example, the data protection officer. Also, there may be specific types of data that require specific ways of dealing with the anonymization of the data. For example, a speech is very difficult to anonymize without losing information that may be relevant in order to be analyzed for the purpose of the projects. And there is also the issue of the integration with the hospital systems. In this case, there are different systems that must be able to communicate with each other. There may be hospital restrictions, different ways of working within different departments. The technology may be very complex, and it may also require complex bureaucracy because, for example, there must be the need to explain what the technology does and why it is necessary that it is there. And it is also quite difficult to keep with the constant updates. So in order to address all these challenges, we found that it is very useful to rely on open source tools when it is possible that adhere to standards, so that it is more useful to integrate different systems. It is also very important to involve hospital IT persons and decision makers within the process of developing the technology and designing how it is going to be integrated, and that these tasks are done well in advance because if they create a big overhead if they are addressed at the end of the project. And then also to be very careful in checking everything in a pre-setting before it is deployed in production. These are very rapidly some of the aspects that we've considered, and we, as Manuel was saying, we've developed a white paper that will be soon released, and there you will be able to find additional information on all these and other important aspects that we've been addressing within the cluster. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Zoraida. I will just show you again the agenda. So thank you very much for this very, very intense, dense of result presentation. Now let's go to the second presentation. The next speaker is Maria Torrente. She is a doctor, PhD in cardiology, 8 years of research experience in cardiovascular research in international laboratories in leading research institutions. She is head of international medicine program at Hospital Universitario Puerta de Hierro, Majadahonda in Spain. And in this webinar, she will share the outcome of the Clarify project. Her presentation has the title Health Professional Experience on the Usage of Clinical Decision Support System. So, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Manuel and everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Yes, can you see it properly?
Yes, yes, we.
Thank you. Okay, first thing, thank you for inviting me to share our experience in this, first in the cluster and then in this event. My point of view, as you know, it will be more as a clinician, as a cardio-oncologist, and I'm going to share with you the results that come out of using a decision support system that is a Clarify platform that we are using at our hospital, and that has been validated here and is now being validated in other hospitals. But I'm going to share mainly our experience here at Hospital Puerta de Hierro de Majadahonda in Madrid. So based on the project's objectives, what we wanted to identify is the risk factors for poor prognosis and perform a profiling of our patients with AI techniques, with artificial intelligence techniques. What we are lacking of, especially in oncology, is the kind of scores for stratification of patients that exist, for example, in cardiology. And in oncology is very difficult because data is very heterogeneous. We're only able to classify patients by the stage of the disease and the type of cancer, and that's it. So we wanted to improve the management of the patients, especially after the treatment, and personalize our follow-up, because now, due to all the new treatments, we are lacking of specific follow-up, not only for each kind of cancer, but for each treatment, because it's also new that there is no follow-up. As you know, we have luckily longer survivorship for cancer patients. So based on the 3 types of cancer patients that we have focused on, that is breast cancer patients, lung cancer, and lymphoma, what we defined was a platform that would be able to integrate clinical data, wearables data, genomic data, and open source data, and be able to visualize everything, but from each patient or from a specific cohort, and not only have it there and integrate it, but also be able to analyze it real time. Normally, at least in medicine, when we want to do an analysis of our cohort of patients, we have to manually get all the data in an Excel and then get a statistician to analyze that. So what we wanted to do is like to be able in clinical practice, like in the consultation, to access not only to the to specific clinical data, but also to everything that we have done to the patient, apart from the tumor specific, okay? To see if the patient had been monitored with a wearable device, quality of life questionnaires that are not usually included in the clinical practice, and that kind of thing, so that we have the big picture of the patient, not only everything tumor related, but everything that is going on with the patient, and be able to select the variables that more impacted in the patient's prognosis and survival, stratify that patient, and adapt the follow-up of the patient. If it's a high-risk patient, then have a more tight follow-up, and if it's a low-risk patient, to be able to manage the reevaluations and identify, for example, the prognosis, the relapse, the risk of relapse of the patients, or the risk to develop secondary toxicities. What challenges did we have, not only in Clarify, but that we all always face, I think, in medicine, and specifically in oncology, that normally we are lacking structured data that is standardized, or that we have it integrated in one place, and that it's easily accessible for the clinicians. So what we were able to do was to say, okay, let's design this platform and use the patient as our data platform, so that we can integrate clinical data, the data from the wearables, questionnaires, or genomic data that will then allow us to design also these algorithms or predictive models that can support the clinician's decisions. Okay, so this is a bit what we have been able to integrate in the platform. Okay, to have the patient, of course, followed up at the hospital, and then have the patient to be monitored with these wearables that, although they are not included in the clinical practice and they are not considered as medical devices, but they are very applicable in medicine. Okay. So what we have in Clarify Decision Support Platform, it's all of these anonymized patients' data from the different data sources that I mentioned. And we are able to analyze real time in consultation, an individual patient, or the whole population. The data that we have currently in the platform is 22,000 lung cancer patients, both from our hospital and from the Spanish Lung Cancer Group National Registry. This way, we are able to compare our cohort of lung cancer patients with the patterns that are obtained maybe from a national point of view, or to compare our cohort with cohorts of other hospitals. 2,000 patients from our hospital with breast cancer diagnosis, and also lymphoma patients, 1,000 from our hospital. Also, we have data from quality of life questionnaires from 650 patients, and data from wearables device from 350 patients. And this way, what we are able to do is this real-time analysis that I said, clinical evaluation of the treatments and prognosis compared to the standard of care. So what are we doing in our hospital, okay, regarding what has been published in the clinical trials, and see if our patients are the same type of patients, that if they respond in the same way as the results obtained in the clinical trials, or if our cohort is different, has different outcomes, have more toxicities or not, and how is the survival, for example. As you know, we are very interested in survival and the different outcomes of the patients, based also in the risk of relapse, which is very important, especially in long survivals. This way, and with the development of prediction models, we are able to identify low risk and high risk profiles. And we have also developed a drug-drug interaction tool that allows us to better manage the medication of the patients. Many patients need support medication during the follow-up and after the oncological treatment. But usually we don't, we are not able to see if there are interactions between oncological and non-oncological drugs, or if the secondary effects that are due to the tumor have to do also with interaction with support drugs. So what we have in this platform is, as I said, the different layers with all the data integrated. And thanks to this layer, we have been able to develop machine learning models that allow us to analyze circadian rhythms of the patient, to do descriptive analysis of our cohort or the national cohort of patients, obtain survival analysis, and to be able also to predict with high accuracy the risk of relapse in early stage lung cancer patient, which was a cohort of interest that we wanted to analyze specifically. This is the interface briefly of the platform. It allows you, it's a web app, so we can all access it from the consultation, from a normal laptop, computer, or desktop, or even on the mobile. And what we do is select the pathology or at study, select the database that we want to access, identify, we have the correlation, of course, of the electronic health record and the identificator that we use in the platform. So if we want to perform an individual analysis or see all the data that we have from a specific patient, we can do it and we can access. We will get the clinical information, and that it's extracted from the electronic health record, and then have the circadian rhythm report, the specific parameters from the quality of life questionnaires, and obtain, if we want to do a population analysis or select a specific cohort of patients, we will be able to obtain survival curves selecting the variables of study and obtain the statistics. We also have one of the section that allows for this drug-drug interaction tool to be used and to access the predictive models. So what are we doing in consultation? This exploration of the patient's characteristic that we are able to do for the first time with our patient, also using and applying this prediction model, especially the early stage lung cancer patient, and analyze the factors that indicate a poor prognosis and on our patients, and also improve the management of the patients during the follow-up by the risk stratification based on the patient's characteristics, and also be able to design a specific or personalized intervention based on all of this information. For this, we have also a specific long survival consultation where what we do is correlate the clinical results that we get from the electronic health record, all the tests are available, the quality of life questionnaires, and the circadian health report. We elaborate a specific report for these patients that maybe has to do with lifestyle habit intervention, with changes in their physical activity, or include support medication when needed, or changes in the diet, whatever. And what we have also developed is an intervention questionnaire that is useful for us, and it's also integrated in the platform to be able to see how much time we are doing the intervention for, and then the re-evaluations of this intervention, if it has benefit for the patient, if it has improved the quality of life, improved whatever was the issue that the patient was having. Okay. And just to mention two studies that have been published. One is on the clinical factors that influence early stage non-small cell lung cancer patients that we have, we have been able to analyze the data from our patients and develop this prognostic model that identifies all of these variables that I have said, and also predicts the risk of recurrence of the cancer. And the second one is a study on with a machine learning assisting recurrence prediction that we first applied in early stage non-small cell lung cancer patients, and now we are applying in breast cancer patients, being the risk of recurrence one of the things that most worry our patients when they are cured of the disease. So the conclusion is that for now we are very happy with this platform. Is the kind of solution that really makes you able to see the whole picture of the patient, and it benefits a lot the communication with the patient. They feel also in the follow-up much more assisted, and they are not left in this no man's land that we did before, like okay, we stopped the treatment and we just saw the patient for the re-evaluation, and that's it, and the patient didn't really know what to do with all the symptoms that appeared after the treatment. So now we are following the patient more closely and addressing all of the needs that these patients had. So I think it's improving these patients' quality of life and well-being. And for us is very important because we are able to obtain patterns in the different cohorts of patients that we have, and also identify the differences between, not only between the pathologies, but also within the pathologies. What are the differences between, for example, early stages, metastatic stages, or the difference in age in these patients that really sometimes we think it's a matter of age, but we have seen with all of these analyses that there are other variables that also have a very big impact and that we weren't considering before. So with this, thank you very much. And leaving the floor to Manuel now.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation to share all these very impactful results of this project. And now let's come back to the agenda. And we are following the scheduling timeline. So the next presentation will be done in a joint, two joint presenters. Let me introduce them. The first presenter is Lucia Sacchi. That is, she's an associate professor at Università degli Studi di Pavia in Italy. Her research focus is temporal data mining and machine learning, clinical decision support system. She is part of the capable coordination team, and she contributed to the definition of the clinical protocol and approval following the medical device regulation. She will present together with Sara Azzini, she is a qualified lawyer, a member of the Cremona Bar Association, and she's focusing in practice in civil law, litigation, and matter related with new technologies and artificial intelligence. She has a fellow in European Center of Law, Science and New Technologies in the University of Pavia, and she also contributor of the Capable project. So their presentation has the title Medical Device Regulation Experience from the Perspective of a European Funded Project. So I give the floor to Lucia and Sara.
Thank you, Manuel. Share the screen. Just a second. Okay. So in this joint presentation, Sara and I will share the experience that we had on the medical device regulation in the Capable project. Capable is a project funded under the Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program, started in 2020. It is coordinated by the University of Pavia, and the work in the project is carried out by 12 partners located in Europe and Israel. The overall goal of the Capable project is to develop a decision support system to improve the quality of life of cancer patients treated at home. And it has its main functionalities are related to symptoms monitoring and well-being interventions. These interventions are delivered through a decision support system that provides evidence-based advices both to patients and healthcare professionals. The Capable system is basically made up of two applications, one mobile app for the patients that gives the possibility to the patient to monitor symptoms related to cancer treatment and perform well-being intervention and use educational material and so on. For the physicians, we have a dashboard where they can monitor the status of all their patients and also perform some actions such as prescribe treatments or report symptoms themselves. Together with the smartphone app, patients are provided also with a smartwatch to track their lifestyle parameters. During the Capable project, within the evaluation activities of the project, we have in place a clinical study on real patients that is carried out during the last year of the project. So we are in that phase now. The Capable pilot study is a prospective quasi-experimental cohort study in cancer patients who are eligible for systemic treatment. The study has two cohorts, the intervention cohort, where the patients receive the Capable smartphone application and the smartwatch that they use through their treatment. The control group instead has the same features of the Capable cohort, but they receive standard care. These pilot studies are carried out in two clinical sites, clinical sites in two countries, Italy and the Netherlands. And the main goal of these studies is to evaluate the differences in the quality of life between the two populations of patients. So we wanted to contextualize the Capable pilot studies because it is to be able to carry out this study that we had to face with all the issues related to the regulations. And in particular for the Capable system, as you see, the Capable cohort is provided with the Capable applications and the smartwatch. So we had to take into account two specific regulations, the General Data Protection Regulation and the Medical Device Regulation. So now I'll leave the floor to Sara, who will give you the legal context of these two regulations and see how they apply to the Capable project.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Manuel, for the invitation, and thank you, Lucia, for introducing the Capable project. Regarding the regulatory framework in the Capable project, we deal first of all with the General Data Protection Regulation, just few things. We process health data. Health data are considered a special category of data. So according to Article 9, there is a general prohibition in processing such kind of data unless you have the explicit consent of the patient. So we got the consent from patient and in our project. As we deal with, we process health data, we had to wrote the data protection impact assessment because in the Capable project, there is a high risk for freedoms and rights of the natural persons involved, so for patients. This is our system, how the system works in the Capable project under the perspective of the data protection regulation. So we have the controller. The controller is the hospital, and then the other partners of the project are considered processors. The relationship among a controller and processor are written in the data transfer agreement. The this agreement considers which kind of processing is allowed to be done by the processor. It also considers the security measure that the processor must be implemented and kept during the data processing, and also the data transfer agreement. In the data transfer agreement, there are the rules to be followed in case of a data breach. We have also to face a big challenge because the medical device regulation, which is entering into force in May 2021, changed a little bit the rules. So first of all, we have to ask, what is a medical device? A medical device is any instrument, apparatus, appliance, software, implant, reagent, material, or other article that has some purposes. So which is these purposes? A device is a medical device when it make a diagnosis, prevention, monitoring, prediction, prognosis, treatment, or alleviation of a disease or a disability. So we have to consider which is the purpose or the purposes of our device. When this regulation applies, this regulation applies in both cases, even if a manufacturer wants to put on the market the device, or also in case of clinical investigation. So in our case, we don't want to got the CE mark, but we have to face and deal with this regulatory issue. So in the past, there was a discussion regarding if a software is or not a medical device. The new regulation states that a software is a medical device, and generally speaking, a software is a 2A class device, unless the software may cause the death of the person, of the patient. So in this case, it is a class 3 device, or a serious deterioration of health. And in this case, the device is a 2B class software. So just a few words on the accessorize. In the Capable project, we have we use an accessorize in order to monitor the blood pressure and heartbeat, but the device itself must be a medical device. So in our case, the Capable system is a 2A class medical device. We need to notify the national authorities, both in Italy and in the Netherlands, as the EUDAMED, which is the central system of the European Union for the notification, is not ready yet. It will be ready in 2024 and mandatory from 2026. So from the legal point of view, it's all. I will give the stage to Lucia.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
What we did in the Capable project was that we followed this roadmap, and remember, as Sarah has just said, that this was followed in both the countries where we have these studies. So first of all, preparing the data protection impact assessment that needs to be signed by legal representatives at the clinical centers. This is needed to apply for the ethical committee approvals, and after ethical committee approvals, we could register at the 2 national authorities the medical device according to the MDR. As you see, this was a process that took us a long time. We started September 2021 and we have just finished, and several iterations in all the steps. Another thing is that the process requires to prepare a considerable amount of documentation. Here you see the list of the main documents that we had to prepare both for all the process. Documents are related, of course, to the clinical protocol of the studies that must have a specific format to comply to MDR. And then we have more specific documentation related to risk management and assessment. Of course, the instructions for use, the manuals, and all the procedures related to adverse events management. So I just want to give a little bit of room to the lessons that, and share with you the lessons that we learned during this process that was long and difficult. So first of all, preparing the needed documentation takes time. Even though, as Sarah said, Capable is not a commercial solution, it is a research product that for the moment is not going to be delivered to the market. Then to prepare this documentation, you need a multidisciplinary team because it's technical, legal, and regulatory expertise is needed. As already mentioned, you might need several iterations with the regulatory bodies to prepare, define, and refine the documentation. And in this, I have to underline that we have differences among countries. So especially regarding the way the specific features of the capable system that is a research product was considered in Italy and in the Netherlands. In my opinion, the activities related to the regulatory issues should start from the very beginning of the projects, even if the project foresees the design and development of a system from scratch, because there are anyway activities that might be carried out even though the system is not yet defined. Another important thing to take into account is that all the design process, it would be useful to take into account the regulation in all the design process of the system. So this would give the possibility to prepare the documentation and to have all the documentation ready while the project is developed. Of course, also the accessories that if there are accessories that need to be coupled to the device, this must also be carefully selected to comply with the regulations as well. So finally, but not least, when preparing the budget for the project, it is important to take into account that the process has costs. So to get these authorizations, you need to pay different amounts in different countries, but anyway, there is a fee. Accessories must be considered because since they have to comply to some rules, they might cost more than expected, and also the possibility to consider the possibility to hire consultants when the expertise in all the areas that I mentioned, so technical, legal, or regulatory, is missing within the consortium. So with this, I'm done. I just wanted to acknowledge all the capable partners who have really worked a lot all together to define the system, but also to be able to carry out the clinical study. Of course, Sara, and you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Now
Lucia and Sara. Now I come back with the screen. Okay, I hope that you can see. So now it's time of the last presentation. The presenter is Maria Eugenia Beltran. She's a senior project manager and researcher at Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. She's a colleague of the department which I'm working also. She is an information system engineer with a PhD in biomedical engineer. She has also an MBA in health international management. And in this webinar, she will bring a market readiness perspective. Her presentation has the title Market Acceptance of the Results of EU-funded Project. So, Xenia, I will give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Thank you very much to everyone, and thank you very much for also inviting us to be part of this webinar. So let me just try to share, and let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, my presentation is very different to the other ones. The other ones are more clinical and a little bit maybe more technical perspective of each of the projects. Okay. The FAITH project is the one I'm representing today. Our project is one of the projects funded and part of the cluster of this cluster, which is a research project that aims at supporting early diagnosis of depression in cancer survivors. We aim at providing an artificial intelligence application that remotely help us to identify depression markers using federated learning in people that has gone on their treatment. Although the aim of this presentation is not about this, about our project as such, okay? We as the project, but as well as the other projects participating here, we all look that for our results to be part of the market's acceptance and actually getting as part of innovation and research actions, okay, to get close to the market. We are all these 11 projects in this cluster and many of the other projects funded by the European Commission. And just to give an idea, there are many of them are part of our big umbrella of projects, okay, which is called the financial or multi-annual financial framework of the European Commission. It's also part of the next generation of funding instruments. And actually, this brings a lot of money to research and innovation, okay, in areas like the ones we are. And we're talking about more than 2 trillion of euros, okay, to be invested in this area. We are under there are 7 big categories here. One of them is called single market and innovation and digital innovation. I'm sorry. Okay, and this category, just to give you an idea, is it has like more than 100 billion of euros for research and development. In this category, we all aim to have funding and to support economic recovery and progress, especially after the COVID. Within this big ocean, let's say, there are a lot of research and innovations actions and single market, and the funding gets like from 32 billion to 16 billion. And in these categories of research and innovation and some cross programs, okay, we have, for example, a special one that's EU for Health, that since 2003, it has like 5 billion. So we're talking about a lot of project and money that is given for a lot of innovation. And these projects are also aiming to take and to bring innovations to the market, as all the 11 projects in this cluster are. So just to let you know, that is more than 300 programs, okay, that really support to finance that. But why it's so hard to innovate, and why it's so hard for many of projects like us to get to the market and reach our outcomes to the market? Well, as it's happening in this cluster with the 11 projects, we are all fighting, okay? We are what we have in common, and I would talk about the ones in the cluster a little bit. For example, all the projects that are here. We are all related with cancer, and actually we all have med tech, and that's where I will focus a little bit. Our technology or medical technology to empower on one side the clinicians, okay, to have better data, more accurate data, and actually tools and digital tools to support decision making. And with this devices or this medical technology, make better diagnosis, treatment, or support, okay, this decision maker to bring a more healthy and wellness environment around us. On the other side, we try to help the patients and be patient-centric and actually support all of us as patients also for our self-management, have more information in how to react when we have a disease, like it could be cancer or after cancer in the symptoms, support better adherence, okay, to our treatments, or detect the symptoms earlier, as is the case, for example, that we're having in phase. But for usually the companies that in our projects take this to the market are the small and medium companies. The small and medium companies suffer a lot of barriers. I'm going to go a little bit about main one and principal ones and things that you probably heard in previous presentations, so you see how it can be reflected in the SMEs. So the barriers for SMEs that try to take medical technology to the market usually is a mix of general business barriers, okay, and some other ones is about of healthcare nature or clinical nature. Overall, we can categorize them like internal barriers, external barriers, and some financial barriers that it can be internal and external as such, let's say that way. So the barriers that face these SMEs or these small companies also can vary from healthcare system to another healthcare system or from country to country. So just to say, like, as internal barriers, okay, what happened to the SMEs and to the scope and a small size of these companies that are trying to be really innovative and take results from all these projects to the market, is because in the medical area, running medical projects sometimes require more than what is managerial skills, and both innovation management and technical skills have to go together. Many of these projects to be taken by itself by these SMEs, okay, are usually cost and high cost and high risk for them to take these innovative ideas or to try to take this to the medical environment. Sometimes for this company, there is a lack of planning in how to go forward when they participate. That means, okay, that sometimes when they come to the projects and they try to take or learn, okay, from the technology, the results do not come part of their strategic plan. Sometimes they are not able to get adequate employees. I mean, managers that really have the relevant training, technical and innovation. That means that they are able to do and business. That means that they are able to do the link of business, to do the link with the adoption of the innovation and the R&D results that they are doing. Okay. Plus, okay, having the medical background. So it's a matter of having a lot of backgrounds that also sometimes is difficult to find in this company. When I was talking about the strategic planning, it's very important because if the results as part of the strategic planning, so it comes into a pipeline of products that really help them to go forward to the market, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So is this kind of two things that which usually also helps to success, let's say. Sometimes from technical point of view, the results are, it's a module, which then only part of this big result in a project, because usually they are big, it can be absorbed partially, and then it comes back part of another product. So sometimes it is lost, okay, that actually results of this project went really to the market. And actually, some of these things are like what it makes, okay, for these SMEs or even for the consumers or for us as a patients, this barrier is what prevents that this technology get to us, okay, especially when sometimes we as patients think that is useful and it can reach the market. Besides that, okay, there is, I'm sorry, some other barriers, that is the clinical part, let's say, in this internal barriers. That means, okay, that when an SME tries to get these results to the medical environment, the medical environment sometimes it works different than other areas, like it could be manufacturing, for example, and the medical environment is highly influenced by scientific research. And this is what, in many cases, and as you can see in many further projects, drive the medical practice. That means that to adopt these technologies, companies need to conduct for their products clinical trials or meta-analysis studies that really drive this through medical bottles to acknowledge, okay, that is an innovative medical technology, and second, that it can be used. So maybe it's not fully state of the art, but it really brings value to the healthcare, and it really can be used, okay, by the clinicians as such. To achieve this, after having all this process of the trials or clinical studies, for sure, usually we were listening before, it has to go through a process of certification. And actually, besides that, it takes a long time to be adopted to take this to an industrial scale to be produced, okay, to cover the cost of this, to cover the cost of the clinical trials, all the related studies. So this process is usually a big effort for small companies, it's costly, it's time consuming, and actually, especially for SMEs who lack of some experience in the domain, or even if they have a very innovative product as such. Besides that, okay, let's say the companies go through all these processes and they get it. Further than this, there is a procurement process especially in the public health system, which is difficult, and for many SMEs to go there and say, I would like to sell this, and actually to be integrated in your big system that it maybe is regional or at country level managed. Okay, so actually it's quite a difficult access to get there. And sometimes on the other side, okay, since the people that might be in the procurement area, it may be sometimes it's difficult to actually acknowledge that this kind of technology could bring some kind of the value for this. So I try to summarize a little bit the internal part. There are many others, there are several others, but I just would like to focus on this because usually they are the big ones. So besides this, in the external factors, okay, those are those that do not depend of the internal processes of the company as such. So actually, the ability to drive medical technology into the market, okay, sometimes depends on the regulations, policies, and patents, okay, that need to be done. Some of them you also come listen in previous projects, okay, that they are what they are trying to achieve. So actually we get these products next to the or close to the market. So the regulation to access national and international markets includes complexity, change from country to country, is fragmented, is lengthy, sometimes it's costly, and sometimes it's blurry. It's very difficult to understand. So actually small companies need some legal support, which is costly for them. So processes as to get the mark of the CE, okay, or what is made in Europe also takes a lot of time. The complexity that goes from managing the data, as you listen also from the projects, okay, to actually certification is also associated with the classification of the medical devices and I'm not going to repeat on that, but just to say that the higher class is the device, for sure more complex, and actually it depends and has different processes to go through FDA in use in United States or notified bodies in Europe or the NHS in UK, things like that. So, and last but not for least, the barrier of patenting medical technology itself, okay, is also costly, is increased, and actually it depends and it changes from country to country. Not only changes, but also the more countries where you would like to have patented this technology is also costly. So it's also part of what we call this financial factor. So going to the middle in the financial factors, okay, for sure there are problems and financial barriers, okay, that it goes from all these services that are costly for them, okay, but also there are obstacles in the company that are more than the cost of a clinical trials or the meta-analysis or the legal part. Is also the capitalization that is needed, okay, at the level of the company. Short-term liquidity, insufficiently working capital, insufficient startup capital to go as a company and to launch the product. Sometimes it's about the poor financial management. Sometimes the expertise is not there. They are very technical-oriented people that have gone through very, very good products, but the management sometimes is factor. Also the high cost of monitoring, okay, and to fund, okay, this kind of projects or this kind of processes is quite high. But not everything are bad news, okay, a lot of opportunities are there. So how to go forward, okay. So in this case, I wanted to do kind of like focus into concepts. So we have medical technology, medtech, and little bit medical devices, okay? And actually it's not as easy as you can say to work in this area with lifestyle devices. So medical devices are the one that on purpose, they are done and manufactured, okay, to be used by clinicians and patients many times, but they are in the purpose of prevention, diagnosis, monitoring, and treatment of disease or the wellness or for the health. And lifestyle devices are commonly considered lifestyle products. It can be for beauty or cosmetics, okay? And here we have all the fitness trackers. It could be for diets, it could be for exercise equipments, it could be for video games. So actually just to say that then the barriers are totally different, and that's what we were talking about. So that's why they have to go through all this certification and costs. Coming back to the opportunities, okay, having and being in this area of medical devices, and what we have to say is that opportunities are there. It's true that besides all this, still many people is trying, and actually large and growing market is coming. So we can say that the MedTech organization at Europe, okay, estimates that this market is very big, so it's 115 billion, and 27%, I mean, more than a quarter of this market is about medical devices. Right now, the certification level, actually what it helps is a lot, because actually then after the COVID, the game changed. So actually there is the clinicians, the hospital, and the whole health system is more prone to use apps, okay, that were needed during the COVID. And actually from apps to these medical devices, okay, there is going a new certification process that it was. And actually then by having something that is certified, okay, either through private healthcare or through public where trials or where a lot of trials are coming or studies are coming, you are able to get this kind of technology easier, a little bit, okay, still with barriers, okay, but easier to the market. There is also a big trend that had changed the behavior, not only of the clinicians and of the hospitals and the healthcare system as such, but also for the people. We as patients or as people are more consciousness regarding the health and how to use these devices and actually improve our health and to use these devices at home. So there is a higher rate of adoption, not only in the health system, but also in the people as such. And actually, there is something that even is a con, it also could be a pro. So there is a lot of trend, a big trend of self-administered medical technology. So it's the one that you can take at home. The issue is that there is usually a big rate of not our poor adherence or not adherence. That is more than almost 1 in 2 people is not adherent to this. And yes, actually that was commented by one of the projects. However, this need of innovation is there because why? In many of our projects, we have finished used at the left, okay, what are called lifestyle devices because the people is getting used to them, is usually getting this, and actually if medical devices get mobile, really useful to the people, then for sure the adherence will be high because there is no new trend of the people of actually not only self-monitoring. Right now, medical devices are in the middle, okay? I mean in the middle because there are big equipments, which are the ones that really need very, very high certification that are only used or mostly used by clinicians. Right now, medical devices are in the middle, but if there is a movement over miniaturization and innovation in the hardware and in the devices, for sure, there is a big opportunity. And besides that, last but not for least, to say that, okay, the European projects is a big opportunity for this because there is a whole this big umbrella and money coming that when the SMEs partner with clinicians and with patients, the cost, okay, are moderated, and then you can use and test your technologies and validate the technologies in this project. What that it means that it helps you and gives the SMEs a lot of opportunities to actually not only change business model, but also to change new processes, see how their technology is used, and actually then you are able to prove the feasibility of your technology and actually be able to see if there is a business viability for it. So it's good to use this kind of projects and work with all of these projects like the 11th in this cluster to actually support SMEs to take this new technology to the market. And this is my presentation.
Thank you so much, Xenia. Thank you to share this perspective, and this lesson learned. So I think that this will be very useful, for also the next coming project. So I will share the screen now. I think that we finalize this session of presentation, and now we move to the round table and also question and answer. So I don't know if our audience has some questions that want to type in the chat. In positive case, please do it. We will try to address those questions during this session, this last session that will be like half an hour, discussing a bit, try to touch all the 4 points related to the 4 presentation. But before to start, I would like to introduce also 2 other people that will take part on this discussion. And so let me introduce Tommaso Vendruscolo, that is a UX designer and human factor consultant at Deep Blue, and he collaborates with leading international partners such as European Medicine Agency and European Commission and the Italian Institute for Health and private companies. So welcome, Tommaso. And then I would like also to introduce Professor Silvana Quaglini. She's a full professor of Healthcare Information System at Università degli Studi di Pavia, Her research interest is in general about decision support system in medicine, and more particularly on basic areas such as decision theory, clinical process modeling, artificial intelligence, probabilistic system, biomedical statistics. Application area includes support system for diagnostic, therapy, and monitoring, such as computer-aided guidelines, economic evaluation model based on decision analysis. She's also the coordinator of the Capable project. So I would like to thank again the presenters and also this new member of the roundtable. And just to start breaking the ice, I will put one question. And we would like to start with one question that is related to, I try to link the presentation. So I have this question that is related to the uptake of this new digital technology and the sustainability, you know. If it's possible that, when we have a digital solution based on mobile, you know, or mobile solution, if it would be possible that patient can use their own device, you know, but this may have, I would like to ask to this panel, you know, if this would be possible and if there are some user experience implication, technical implication, legal implication on that. So I will put this question on the table and maybe we can start a discussion around that. So who would like to start?
Maybe I can start.
Yes, please, Tommaso.
Yeah, I'd like to start from a user experience perspective, since I'm a UX designer, saying that, of course, it's important to have the possibility to do that, namely to install services in a patient's device. And it has also some human implication. In fact, in a sector like healthcare, and in particular facing a delicate question like cancer, it is important to truly meet user needs and expectations. And for this reason, it's important also to install the services on patient's device. In fact, the less external devices are used, the more the level of acceptability will increase, and as a consequence, also the risk of abandonment will decrease. Also because usually the trials in this type of situations are often long, like several months. So it is important to decrease as much as possible in my opinion, the use of external devices that are foreign to a person's routine.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I do agree on what you're expressed me, because really, I mean, also we want to sometimes this new project maybe introduce new devices that maybe are too much cumbersome to the user. Maybe it's time also to, at least for the sustainability, to reduce the device, no? But then also in the presentation of Zoraida, there was she touched a very interesting point on related to this, that it requires on this project also people specialized to build application that will last all the time and will be compatible to all the possible devices of the users. So do you want to add something on that? What do you think? What is your perspective on this?
Yes, what I had the opportunity to discuss with the partners when writing the white paper was that it is not simple to translate development that has been done for a certain type of device or operating system to another. So if it's necessary to build this second version of the system to work with a different, for example, operating system, this should be considered carefully, well enough in advance, also to have the expertise to do this development. And sometimes there was no other choice as to include the type of device as a as one of the aspects in the recruitment or to be considered for for the recruitment of the users that were going to participate in the experiments or the validation of the solutions. So it was not an easy issue, and it should be considered prior to the development.
Yes, okay. I saw that Senya raised the hand. Please, Senya, take the floor.
Yeah, I would like to comment also our experience. I mean, let's say there are different things. Okay, first, okay, let's say in our experience, we started with some medical. I mean, one of the things or parameters we measure is sleep. Okay, for example, in our project to actually get a lot of information to enrich the clinical one. So actually, what we are using is medical and or lifestyle devices to enrich clinical information to actually see a better correlation and have more enriched data. The issue is that when we end up with these big devices, the people said, I mean, for sure, they are not useful. Like, if I have to travel and take this, I will not take it. So actually that actually then turns us to the fact that at the end, we have to end up in lifestyle devices, something that is really mobile, easy. And that was why my spectrum of devices a little bit, I thought it was important, and also important for medical devices maybe to move to more miniaturized or mobile devices that really are easy and more useful to the patients as such. If we want to if the goal of the company that is developing is to actually is in this direction, let's say that way. The issue is that even if you get to the medical devices, let's say you use the lifestyle, they are easy, the people feel comfortable and they use them. From project perspective and from data management perspective, there are several things. So actually, if you say, let's say, I would like you to use your device, okay, the issue is that usually your device is registered to a system that is outside of the clinical environment of the trial. So that means, okay, either the device needs to be reset with let's say, fake information. So when we get it, we can, as clinical study, ensure that the information is it's in compliance with the GDPR, and it then is managed by the people that process it in an aggregated manner. So either we have to take the decision of purchasing the devices and giving to them, and some people maybe had to use 2 devices during the study, which is not so comfortable, but the people has been very nice and willing to use it because they are volunteers, okay? Or either if the device it was the same, then we were able to reset, but sometimes the people didn't want it because they say, then I lose my history, because they usually have their own tracking of history, how good they have done with their activity, with their sleep and whatever. So it's a very tricky issue, but the issue is that at the end, for management of data, sometimes it cannot be done. And the other thing is that, let's say that the device is different to the one you're using in the trial. So the issue of the device is not only the accuracy, but the way they measure the thing. Then if you have one patient or one person that is measured with one type of device, let's say lifestyle or a tracker, activity tracker 1 and activity tracker 2. The issue is that, you know, sometimes you in 3 minutes, okay, with one device, you have, I don't know, let's say 200 steps, and the other one you have 100. So they measure difference many times. So actually, if you want to have homogeneous data, because that's what you need in a trial, and you also need to have, okay, some kind of compliance with the legal. So actually, sometimes it's very difficult to actually ask the people to say or to bring their own device, which it will be great from cost perspective of any project, but sometimes it gets really difficult. So you have to do a trade-off between usability, user experience, and what is needed in the trials. That's my perspective and our experience in phase.
Okay. I would like to know also the perspective, the legal perspective, because I know that in Capable, Sarah, Lucia worked very hard for this, try to follow the regulation. But in the assumption of the project, the idea was to use a dedicated device. Is there any implication, legal, ethical implication on the use of the personal device? Do we have also some risk of security breach?
Yes. Yes, I will leave Sarah to comment on the specific issue, but Yeah, in one way, having incapable one device that is provided by the project saved us a bit of work, especially on the part of risk assessment.
Yeah, exactly, because we have to consider that if the user uses its own device, there is the possibility of more data breach, and also so that we need to consider more risks in our risks assessment, and so in the risk evaluation and also in the risk management, because there is the possibility that through other apps installed in their device, they can maybe breach our application. So we decided to use a dedicated device.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so also it's not, you cannot foresee the possible interactions, for example, that might occur between the apps that a user might have installed that might cause a malfunctioning or an incorrect delivery of the messages to the user. So this has to be considered, and in my opinion, it would add complexity to this part.
Yeah.
For sure, of course, taking into account that instead it would be very helpful for the patients, for the users in general.
Yes, that also will require more complexity on the security approaches, no, and then for sure on the security, on the portability, no, requirement, in the sense to support all the possible devices of the user. Yes, I can understand, but that could be, I mean, a way, no, to maybe make a digital survey more sustainable, make more this digital intervention more similar to lifestyle intervention. You know, now you can download an app from the market, no, and use it. You know? Okay. Any other comment on this topic? Otherwise,
yes, Manuel. No, just to remind that we also are using a tool. I don't remember the name. Maybe Lucia knows. With this tool, we can not control, but let's say to perform some operations from remote in all the devices that we give to patients. For example, installing a new version of the app. So using this tool, we do not have the need of going into the single device and make a new installation, but so it's also possible to use this.
Yes, it is even a mobile device manager, it's called.
Mobile device manager, okay.
These solutions are very helpful with dedicated device, but maybe in with a user device, no, private device, maybe this will add more security and ethical, you know, if this tool is useful to just monitor the specific service, in this case capable, but maybe will be a problem not to enter in the private.
No, but in fact it is used only for such operations that do not interfere with the patient privacy, of course. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. Any other comment on this topic, or maybe we can go further?
No, if we can report about our experience in Capable, of course, most of patients would have preferred to have the app in their own devices. Nevertheless, they are available to accept a dedicated device. Maybe also because now it depends from the application, but in our case, it's not really necessary that the patient brings all the time the device with him. He can also, he can also use the device only once a day, for example, at the evening, in the evening, to report what happened during the days. So if there is an application that requires a continuous interaction, of course, this could be a problem. If an application may be used once a day, for example, at the end of the day, also having a dedicated device that may be left at home, it would work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for the case of capable is feasible, no, but for instance, for the example that Xenia mentioned, the monitoring no, of lifestyle or
yeah, it depends on the application features and
yes,
how it is demanding.
yeah, and okay, I have one clinical question. I don't know if Maria, are you there? Because I know that Maria have to jump to a patient visit, so maybe we lost her. Maria, are you there? So otherwise, I will go to I will skip this for later, no? And I would like to come back with the part of the use, the part of the regulation, because I learned from the presentation of Lucia and Sarah that this regulation required that the project, the research project, no, start these activities very early, no? And the team being able to face complexity of this risk analysis and documentation. Do you think that there is some opportunity for the European Commission, the researcher community to simplify this process? No, is how this can be somehow, I mean, I know that we are opening this new way, no, because this regulation just started, no? It is like similarly to the GDPR, when started, it was very problematic to implement, no? So, but is there a plan? Is there some, just to give maybe just a vision of what will happen in future if this will be simplified, or if this will remain like this, a very big barrier, I would say, also for institutions that are, or companies that are new to this market. So what do you think?
So as far as I know, the regulation is mandatory. So what we did in Capable is mandatory. Maybe with the entry into force of the UDAMED, we have the possibility to apply only for one notification instead of more notification, one per each country. But the process we went through is mandatory. So I don't think there is the possibility to simplify this unless the European Union will change the regulation. For example, it can say, okay, this is a research matter, so we are outside the medical device regulation, but this implies to change the regulation. So I don't think this will happen, but
if I can make also a comment, so what we hope, I think that so at least if we had what we experienced in Capable, as we also said in the presentation, was a different interpretation in the different countries of the regulation in the specific case of a research product. So it would be already a simplification if, and also another thing that maybe we didn't mention is that, for example, in the Italian case, our ministry, since the very recent introduction then into practice of the MDR in 2021, was still not ready, is still preparing to analyze this type of requests. And probably I could also say that maybe Capable was one of the first research projects that they had to, and they had an approach that was very strict and very connected to the market. So as if Capable, the experience was instead different in the Netherlands, where we, Sarah in particular, she provided some explanations and some arguments related to the fact that we could save some parts of the documentation in relation to the fact that we are not going to the market, at least with this investigation that we are carrying out, and they were accepted in that case. So at least maybe with the UDAMED, or maybe there will be a more uniform approach to the research projects and to the products that that we are developing, that are a bit special with respect to the commercial products.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, so we have to see if really how this will be in general implemented in all the EU members. It seems that in Italy is different from Netherlands, at least at this phase. Maybe
For now,
it will be more clarified. Then I see that there is an opportunity for new companies to provide this type of consultancies. No, I think that now there is a new market on that, and maybe
even though, Manuel, sorry if I interrupt, also the consultant we worked with for the part of risk assessment, so he was used to work with companies, so it was a very nice exchange of expertise, and he always says that he had to learn also from us, you know, because that's a very special case.
Yes, and maybe also the European Commission should think something on sort of support, you know, how we have as we have the Horizon Result booster, no, and initiative for standardization, maybe also for this part, maybe we all the, at least for the EU funded project, maybe it might be useful to foster, because this could be a very big problem, because no, as you also mentioned, if the resources also and the activities are not well planned in the implementation of the project, this will be critical. Yeah, so that's a very, very sensible point, I think. Okay, any other?
Yeah, if I would like to comment
please.
also a little bit from the market perspective, maybe something totally different, a little bit. I think the new regulation not only opens a lot of opportunities, because many things that were not considered devices, now it could be considered devices, like software as a device, for example. I think that when all this spectrum of devices come through, the big and the main aim on this regulation actually is to increase safety. And I think we all as patients also, and as clinicians, the ones that are clinicians, okay, what the one is the higher safety when you use these devices, and when actually something like a software take a decision to make sure that it's going to be safe. So in my view, it's true that, and I share the insights that right now is new, and actually the perspective, how it had been interpreted is different, but I think with time, okay, the experience also will take a change on that part. But I think it's quite important, the change that it took in terms of safety. I think, for example, from market perspective, this new legislation not only will improve safety, but actually will facilitate what is the product recalls, you know, when something is not working and you have to take them back to the company. I think this legislation will help to that. It's a very good market issue, and I think that's very good for clinicians and patients also when that happens, to be substitute something that is not working. It's true that the administrative burden, I think personally that is, and the cost is quite high. I think from market perspective, there will be a much more diversification of products. That means products that maybe our lifestyle can move to the devices, and products that were devices, okay, due to the regulation, maybe will join the lifestyle market or domain, let's say. So they will come as non-medical products. And well, maybe there is a loss of innovation at some point, hopefully not, okay? But I mean, I think it will be a lot of game changers as players in the market with these new regulations, and actually movement of from one side to the other one, due to the facility that it gives to either recalls or the terms in which safety is taken by each of the devices and the categories.
Yeah, yes. completely agree on that. Yes, I think that this will somehow the European Commission will try to sort out all these new market and also for sure foster opportunities now for the player, now small and big.
I think it will bring a lot of shifts in the market regarding the products and where they would like and where they will play, depending on their purposes, let's say a little bit. But for sure, in my view, it will bring a lot of diversification on the medical and on the medtech.
Yeah. Okay. Now I would like to, because since we are very close to the end, I would like to ask a question that is more related to the health professional. I don't know if we have Maria Torrente here, because as I told you, she had to jump to an urgent appointment with a patient, but maybe also all of us, we can share the experience working in this project in which we have hospital involved. No? So in general, when we are developing a new technology, we have the idea to provide innovation, no, in digital health. But this is, there is a big barrier, no, that is how this is accepted and integrated in the clinical practice processes. No? So in your opinion, what are the biggest barriers here? No, because we see that somehow we promise that we, for instance, no, we foster integrated care, for instance, no, so a system that we work in different departments, but then we saw some limitation on how the clinical process is now works in the real life, no, and then maybe we have to simplify, we have to make a workaround. So what could be, no, what could be, should be done, maybe the healthcare organization and on the other side by the research for the next projects? Who has an answer for this?
But in my opinion, is a lack of dedicated personnel. I mean, we had a lot of difficulty in hiring healthcare professionals for our project in Capable. I'm talking about our experience for following the patients, for opening their dashboard every day to look if there is some new data and so on. Because we have, at least in Italy, lack of medical doctors. So the hospitals are really in trouble now. So the risk is that at least in the first implementation phases, instead of facilitating healthcare professional, we introduce a new task for them. No? So if the number of personnel is always the same, and there is the introduction of a new technology, for them, it's a new task. So this is something that we have to talk about. The other problem is, as you just said, we often promise the integrated management of the patient. So having this multidisciplinary team, you know, in our case, we have the oncologist, the psychologist, and the nutritionist. But it's not easy to coordinate all these professional figures. No? So we also have having a lot of difficulties in making this coordination, because it is not something that the institution imposes, but it's something that this project imposes. This is another thing to think about.
So maybe the innovation should be not at technology level, but at process level. I care.
Yes, yes. Now there is the lack of this institutional process level. No?
Anybody wants to add, share their opinion, experience on that? I have to say that also in Spain there is, I have some conversation with some medical doctors. I say, okay, here in Spain, we start making research at 5 p.m. Before we had to make visit and work as a medical doctor. So there is a problem, as you also mentioned, of resources. And then again, as also you mentioned, this problem of organizational projects, that in general, every clinical unit is working by itself. Is not the interaction are limited. So when we want to propose some digital solution that foster this integrated care, so we start having a problem. Yes. Any other comment on this? So I will make, I think that, I mean, we are on time, and if you want, we can make a very short consideration on, yes, on market readiness. I have just a little question, no? That maybe this week, Xenia, if you want, we can start, no? That is, what are the best business model approaches for digital health tech solution? Now, what is there nowadays some consolidated business model, like, for instance, value-based, and how a new company can build all these competencies, no? Because as we understand in this webinar, it's quite hard to operate in this sector of the care because of the barriers that we have with patients, with health professionals, with the hospitals, but also with the regulation, the certification, no? So, what do you think? Is there now a new opportunity to build new business model, or is there already any promising business model for these new companies?
It will be great if I know the full answer for this. Right now, I mean, I don't have the full answer in that direction. But as it was commented before, there are also a lot of need of innovation. So actually, innovation in business processes, okay, is needed, okay, as business processes. I mean, call it business processes. Let's say clinical processes or internal processes. Call it as a business, as an organization in the healthcare system, okay? Also, as those processes change, for sure, the business models will change. But I think for an SME, the first thing, okay, is to be clear what they want to reach, okay, and what type of device they want to do and for what. When you have that, and if that's part of your strategic plan, that was one of the first things that we commented in the presentation, I think, okay, then also gives you the opportunity to really estimate what is the burden, burden on one hand, and the risk on the other ones on the hand that you want to take to actually to go through all this process. Okay, if you really believe this will be strategic and this is the goal for the sustainability of your business, for sure, go through it. Okay, if not, then you have to take another market that is not the medical device market or the or the medical technology as such, just to be fully certified. But then that makes you to compete in maybe more in a market that where cannibalization, let's say, is a little bit harder, competition is much more harder. So it's about the companies also to position, okay, their products. That's the first thing, actually, to have the business model as such. Let's say, or to answer or try to answer your question, that yes, I want to compete, I want to be there, I go through all this certification process. I think, okay, if you really believe that your product can be valuable and can bring a lot of accuracy, okay, in either diagnostic, either treatment or data, either because I think it's more than the device as such, because I mean, any of these devices, usually, especially the ones linked to technology, they have a component of software and component of in many cases of artificial intelligence when you need data. So actually, if you have had the opportunity to test it and gather data and to actually know that the accuracy of the results that you're giving is high, I think it's worth to compete and to go through all this process, and actually the gains will come.
Yeah.
But you have to be sure that the accuracy, because the environment is quite clear. First is safety, and the second thing is about, you know, diagnostic treatment and management of symptoms and of disease, of health, and for that the requirements are high in the certification. So,
okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other comment on related to this new possible business plan that can be built with these new technologies? Okay, if not, I think that we run out of time. We have 5 minutes left, but I think that it's time, I think, to give all the thanks to the attendees and also, but also a bigger one to the panelists that gently share their time and experience, you know, to discuss this lesson learned. I hope that you enjoy these 2 hours. I would like also to thank these additional 2 panelists, Tommaso and Silvana. So, and also I think that in the next month, maybe it will be interesting to continue the discussion, no? Maybe combining this perspective with other ones, and maybe also inviting other projects that maybe have other stories and issues to share, no, in this community of this cluster. So I would like to thank you all of you, and with this, my proposal is to close this session with also on time, 5 minutes before, but I think that it will be good. And then I just remind you that this session has been recorded, and I will also ask to publish this recording I will share also to the participant of this webinar, and maybe this can be published in the pages of the project that have been mentioned. You know, that will be useful for dissemination, but also for sure in the webpage of the cluster Cancer Survivorship AI for Wellbeing. So again, I will thank you so much for your availability, your interest, and to discuss and share your opinion and result of your research. And I hope to see you very soon. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much,
everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.